Well, one of the main takeaways from that 30-minute long interview of Mr. Bill Gates is the resounding rating he has given to India's COVID fight back. You heard that, viewers. Bill Gates came out and said that on a scale of 1 to 10, when I prompted him, India's fight back was 7 to 8 out of 10. Now, this rating belies the impression sought to have been created by some that Modi government's response had floundered and that his government had let down vast number of Indians. Let's open this up. Are those claims still valid? And remember, viewers, here are some of the reasons why Bill Gates believes that India has done well. He said that we're ahead. We are ahead and have done better than United States in vaccine coverage. That our response after the first wave to stall it was fantastic. Unfortunately, he also does say, and he concedes in his book also, that countries that have done very well, and this sounds counterintuitive, that did very well in stalling the first wave, suffered a little bit more, not because they were unprepared, but because vast number of their populations were not exposed. And therefore, when Delta hit, it hit with greater devastation. And that's perhaps some of the reasons why he says that certain countries are feeling the impact of Omicron more, while India is feeling less because of its vaccination and endemic immunity. He also says that you can't go out there and immediately suggest that the lockdown policy was wrong. He says a lot more debate, a huge more amount of nuance needs to be injected into that conversation. So was the opposition, were individuals aligned with them too hasty in jumping the gun? Let's open that up. Sanjay Jhah is with us, and Sanju Verma, national spokesperson of the BJP, is also with us. Sanjay Jhah, of course, author and suspended Congress leader. But nonetheless, Sanjay Jhah, the question was implicit. Did Modi's detractors, and let me be very specific here, did they jump the gun?
I don't think so, Rahul. I'll tell you why. There are two aspects when you really assess the performance of the government on the pandemic. One is the vaccination that you're talking about, where I must admit that after a very appalling start, India has made the necessary strides it was needed, because otherwise we would have been extremely vulnerable after the disastrous experience of the second COVID wave. But I think the one data point that I think we need to discuss, Rahul, on your show, because it's a very popular program watched by billions of people in the country, is what the WHO is actually talking about today. And now we are not talking about Lancet, we are not talking about the Congress, we are not talking about the opposition. The WHO is actually now telling the government of India that the number of cases that may have occurred where people died may have been as high as 4 billion. And that, to me, is the most disconcerting figure and the only parameter by which we evaluate a government. Now, if these numbers are proven true, because the government of Mr. Modi, not known for transparency, being terribly opaque on GDP, on per capita income, or you know that on several statistics, including jobs, they have been very dodgy and ambiguous. But when it comes to human death, it's not just about India, because you're talking about how to battle a pandemic. I think the WHO has a global responsibility of being prepared to handle another wave or another deadly virus. Why is India stalling using the flimsy pretext of methodology when the entire world seems to have agreed on the method of evaluating how many people died? And if 4 million people indeed die in India, then we have the highest casualty rate in the world. And if you look at that data point, then I think Mr. Modi's government, I think the opposition has been right in saying, has performed far below par.
Well, I put that question, as viewers you all heard, to Mr. Gates. I asked him that question in black and white, and I also asked him whether in democracies it is possible beyond a point to suppress death data. And you know his answer. He was very clear that it is difficult to suppress data in open, transparent democracies. Questions will be raised. He says India is a noisy democracy. Many questions are asked. It's argumentative. And he said it is for everyone's sake right now to hold out a little bit before passing a judgment even on that score. But that is his point of view. Sanju Verma, how do you respond to Sanjay Jhah's position where he says vaccination, okay, after an appalling start, we got our act together. We did fantastically well. Mr. Gates also acknowledges. But one data point, which is the suppression of death data, Modi government has failed. There have been deaths and he's not facing up to it.
Rahul, I heard Sanjay Jhah very carefully, and I have this to say. I think let's put things in perspective. The population of India is almost 140 crore people. The population of United States of America is very 33 crore people. USA has reported 9.95 lakh deaths. India has reported 5.24 lakh deaths. I don't want to reduce the pandemic to merely statistics on mortality, but truth needs to be told. And the fact is that we've been able to rein in mortality rate, not only despite the fact that we are the second largest populous nation in the world, Rahul, but our density of population is 455 persons per square kilometer, which makes tackling an pandemic or an epidemic even that much more difficult. The density of population in USA is barely 25 or 30 persons per square kilometer. I want to focus on something more. When the vaccination drive started, be it vaccine discrimination, which was propagated by the Congress, be it vaccine hesitancy, be it vaccine wastage. Despite constant diatribe by the opposition, despite fake narratives, look at it. Today, we have vaccinated 100% of our eligible adult population. As things stand now, we have given 189.63 crore doses. Assuming 94 crore is our adult population, we needed to give 188 crore doses to make the adult population fully vaccinated. And we have achieved this in record time. Please note that last October 2021, we gave 100 crore doses in barely 270 days. So India's vaccination drive is the largest. It's also the fastest. And more importantly, Rahul, let me tell you, I have some interesting statistics here. We have given the first dose in the 15 to 18 age bracket to 5.86 crore. 5.86 crore people and 4.28 crore in the 15 to 18 age bracket have received both the doses. 2.89 crore precautionary doses have been given. And last but not the least, in the 12 to 14 age group, we have given the first dosage to 2.97 crore children, and 83 lakh children in the 12 to 14 age group have got both the doses.
Let me bring in Sanjay Jhah. Okay, so you've had some data points thrown at you by Sanju Verma. She always comes prepared with data. Sanjay Jhah, can you do better? Can you do better than relying on rhetoric?
Well, Rahul, there are 2 points here. Number one, I will skip the hyperbole and come to the point. I think Sanju missed what I said at the very beginning, that there has been good progress made on vaccination coverage. I'm glad we haven't had so many doubters and naysayers in India's, America, and different parts of Europe as space, which is a good sign. I do believe, Rahul, that today it's wonderful when boosters are being made for all young adults in the country.
Yeah, Mr. Gates also talked about how there is so much conversion, political convergence rather, here on this issue of vaccination. So,
absolutely.
So he did acknowledge that. Credit must, of course, go to all political parties for being mature.
Absolutely.
But what is the data point that you want to respond with?
Yeah, I'll give you the main point. When there is a success of the vaccine, you have the central government saying that, the credit must come to me. Mr. Modi must get the credit. I do believe that political leadership was tested during these very, unpredictable times, a black swan moment, as we all know. But at the same time, the responsibility and accountability for not just the deaths, which could be up to 4 million. Let's see what the final numbers are brought out by WHO. But look at Rahul, the collateral consequences of mental health problems, disrupted economy, which has pushed the middle class into pauperization, which has pushed 230 million people into poverty.
No, but
there is a
true.
gargantuan problem.
Look,
and the government has a bigger role
but Mr.
than
Jha,
merely looking at data
second,
and
please,
putting Mr. Modi's face on a certificate.
Okay, but without being insensitive, again,
Sure.
to people who have lost businesses and jobs, this was collateral paid by a large number of countries. And that certain countries are doing better or worse in jousting or dealing with the fallout. Now, I'm not hearing a clear data point. Now, estimation of death figures, the government has its own figures, the government has its own method of tabulation. Some in the press, in the Western press, are using another scale. I don't think anyone can deny there were deaths, viewers. And in an open democracy like that, like ours, it becomes almost impossible to hide the deaths. You can manipulate numbers, but the truth stares us.
Rahul, may I please?
No, I'm leaving it at this because, Sanju Verma, we'll be going back and forth. I only had 10 minutes. Bill Gates' interview was 30 minutes, and I only have 10 minutes. So I'm ending it. Look, the point is, I think everyone will benefit if strong data points. Sanju Verma, to her credit, has brought out the data. Now, you can argue against it with data. Let's get the data. I will defer by Mr. Gates' judgment, 7 to 8. 7 to 8 out of 10. I'll leave it at this. Viewers.